my 1975 Honda CB750 Super Sport, and it's got a new exhaust. Now, I don't actually mind the giant 4-into-1 that came from the factory, but this thing doesn't fit anymore because of the rear set foot pegs and the taller rear shocks that I added. The plan was always to like make a handmade custom 4-into-1 exhaust myself, but it's springtime. I want to ride this bike, so I decided to get something mostly off the shelf. And as a bonus, it actually was cheaper than getting the raw material to make it myself. Scale of production's a bitch, man. So this is a set of headers from Delkevic. They're a UK company, but I think the pipes are made somewhere else. This is a non-sponsored video. I paid full retail price for these. I can't even really review them because I haven't used them yet, but they do fit nicely. The welds look fine, and this was $280 shipped. Now that is just for the headers and collector, no muffler, because I've got this Yoshimura exhaust can. It's from like an R6 or something. It's kind of old school. I bought it on eBay years ago for like basically nothing. Now the reason that this is not a completely off-the-shelf solution is because this muffler has a flange on the end instead of the more typical like slip fit and clamp. So we're gonna have to do something about that. To actually install the headers is pretty easy. I would suggest you put all 4 of the header pipes into the collector, add the springs, and install it all as one piece. I didn't do that, as you can see. I wanted to see how the ends of the headers all like lined up with each other, just kind of figuring it out. And this was just for mock-up anyway. I wasn't replacing the exhaust gaskets at that point. It's not crazy tight, but it's not hanging down too loose there. This bike is tilted kind of back on its side stand, so you're kind of getting an underside view of this. Yeah. I'm going to admit, this look is not going to be for everybody. That's fine. I don't know, I think it's got this like kind of early 2000s kind of vibe here. We might end up cutting this can a little shorter. We'll see. I don't know. What I am gonna do is take like 2 inches off of this pipe here, bring it a little closer that way. I left this thing off after cutting, I don't know what, 2 inches of tubing off the exhaust, but I gotta say, I wasn't really feeling it. So in fact, what we got here now is a longer piece with an angle. Spent some time with this rear set, kind of dialing in exactly where I want it to sit, you know, in terms of angle, so that it's comfortable for myself. And we've got clearance just. You'll see that I've got like this kind of kicked out angle because this muffler has like a kicked in angle. So when they match up, it'll look something like that. I feel like this is where it's supposed to sit. I did accidentally drop this thing messing with these rear sets, and I put a little dent right here, which is actually fine because with the pipe sitting like this, what I want to do is shorten the muffler by like 6 to 8 inches, putting the end of the pipe right in front of the rear axle. I think that aesthetically will look good, as well as it'll make sure that I'm able to, you know, unbolt the wheel if I need to without taking the pipe off. So you might have noticed in that last shot the flange had already been made. So let's go back to that. We're going to talk about a surprisingly divisive issue, which is, of course, measuring holes. And then like press firmly. Yeah. All right, so I bet I could probably make a functional part just using this little pattern here. We're not exactly doing aerospace grade work here, but I do want to be a little more accurate than that, so we're going to make some measurements here. Accuracy, of course, is a relative term. Kind of depends on the tools that you have available to you, but we're going to use like a cheap digital caliper. This one's from Harbor Freight. So there's a couple of ways to do this. What I see most frequently is people will measure like from one side of the hole to the same side of the hole, the other hole. like the right side of this hole to the right side of that hole. And that's like pretty close, but there's a bit of eyeballing involved. I'll also see people measuring from like, the outside to the outside and then subtracting the diameter of the hole because it's the radius times 2. That is usually fine, but you need to know the exact diameter of your hole. This is an M8 threaded hole, which means, for an M8 bolt. Thing is, this is not exactly 8 millimeters, so if you just subtract 8 from that measurement, you're going to be off by probably close to a full millimeter. What I like to do is we'll measure outside like that, 73.14 millimeters. Flip the caliper around, measure the inside, call it 59.55. So 59.55 plus 73.14. Okay, 132.69. Divide that by 2. 66.345. We'll call it 3.5. Let's see, we'll take our calipers and we'll set that to 66.35. I mean, I don't know about you, but that looks pretty damn close. What's nice about this method is it does not matter what the diameter of the holes are. And in fact, they could be completely different diameters. It would work if I tried to measure the distance from this hole to this hole, like the big one. One last thing, 66.35 millimeters, that's not a number that, it's kind of weird. It's a weird number. In inches, that's like 2.6125, which again, that's not something people are familiar with, because you figure a person laid this out. They had to choose what this dimension was. And people like whole numbers or like a decimal point that they're familiar with, 0.5, 0.25. If this was 2.625, 2 5/8 inches, I wouldn't think anything of it. But because 66.35 is kind of a weird one, it's worth double, triple checking your work to make sure that you're measuring correctly. I went back and I did it a few times and I started getting 66.5, which seems a little more in line with what I would expect something like this to have. Likewise, this is 50.25 millimeters. Now, the size of the hole that I'm going to be drilling, I have inch drill bits, so I'll get the closest thing to 8 millimeters, but there's going to be enough slop that a 0.15 millimeter discrepancy is not going to ruin the part. But while we're here, we should make sure to try to be as accurate as we can, right? I'm going to drill my holes using this Bridgeport. Got the mill, might as well use it. You can see here I've kind of laid out where I want my holes to be. Already got this thing set to 0. This is a little bit overkill for a little flange like this, but like I said, accuracy is relative to the level of tooling that you have available. This startup is in real time. That's full speed. That's what we're doing today. Okay, I guess we'll try to pry out that piece in the bottom. Pretty funny. Okay, flange made, now back to the other thing, welding. All right, tack together. I'm going to pull it off and we can start to weld this all together. Unfortunately, I'm out of gas. I think there's like a law It's like a scientific theory, states that you only run out of gas on Sunday. So back on the bench here, I'm using a back purge setup to fill the entire tube with argon gas. That way the backside of the weld won't get oxidation, or in the case of stainless, it's called sugaring. Normally you can just remove that oxidation, but it's tough to do deep down in a tube. And if you leave it, it can weaken the weld and even cause rust on stainless. You know, a motorcycle exhaust goes through some pretty vicious heat cycles. It is exposed to elements. There's tons of vibrations. You really want to get this thing a fighting chance, you know? Where's the good part? That's the part I want to show you. Not too bad. I'm not a pro welder or anything. I've just been doing this long enough that I think I'm half decent at it. Woo. Now, as you can see, the flange, we've got some gaps and stuff, and you know, the tube is not perfectly flat. I don't want to have any weld over here where it's going to like mess with the mating surface on the muffler, so I'm going to do it all from this outside. And because this material is relatively thin, stainless is really prone to like moving and warping as a heat. You put a tack weld on stainless and you'll actually see it, you can feel it move as the weld cools. I'm just going to go around and kind of try to keep the heat even so that this flange stays relatively flat, and that will mean it'll be a little easier to get a good seal on the muffler later. Man, look how much this flange warped with the heat of welding, and that was with me going around, you know, like doing 3/8 of an inch here, turning 90 degrees 3/8 here, and it just yeah, pulled the flange way out of whack. So just a little bit of work with a pair of pliers, I'll get that straighter than it is now. But you know, obviously the exhaust gasket's going to be doing a lot of heavy lifting there. All right, got everything bolted back up into place. Yeah, next up, I'm going to cut this thing apart. I've done this once before on an old dirt bike, like a zillion years ago, but I think it's the same concept here. We'll just drill out all of these rivets along the end. These are just like your standard 3/16 inch rivets, aluminum from the hardware store. I don't think you need the special Yoshi ones. Then this end should come off, and then the perforated core inside, like it's a steel perforated tube, that'll all slide out. The fiberglass may or may not come out with that. I don't know yet. But then we're just gonna like chop off how much we need, drill some holes, rivet it back together. It should be like pretty easy, I hope. Just drill until the head comes off. This came out with some effort. You can see welded pieces, formed pieces on both ends. So when I go to cut this thing, I'm gonna try to remove this piece from the perforated and re-weld it back in place. All right, I think I decided that I wanted to shrink this down 6 or 8 inches. I need to, probably should have confirmed that before I took it off and took it apart, huh? It's okay. We'll say 8. No, we'll say 6. Oh, fuck. Okay. Should have just taken that out. We'll make it work. You can see I just removed this piece, this like flanged piece from the other half of the perf material. Just cut the welds with a like a Dremel cutoff wheel. This fits in here pretty nicely, as one would expect. And I'm just gonna put a couple tacks in with the TIG welder. I went pretty aggressive with the cut, as you can see. Took a full 8 inches of material off of the end of this. It's gonna be loud. Gonna be real loud, but at least I'll be able to remove my rear axle nut without taking the pipe off. All right, I think I'm ready to assemble this. I sanded down the edges here so they're a little cleaner, less ragged, except for the place where the bandsaw caught. But that's on the back side, so it'll be fine. I haven't drilled the holes yet because I have a feeling that if I try to drill the holes, I'm just going to bend the material instead of cut through it. So I've marked out where all of the holes are on this thing. I think I'll be able to get close enough. This stuff does not want to hold the original shape too well. I think I can get it kind of started here, kind of tap it into place. I'm just going to line up this core. Yeah, I think we're bottoming out on this core here. We're still like underneath like an inch from the edge. When in doubt, just hit it harder. Okay, close enough. I'm not going for perfect because this is only a show bike. I don't think I'm going to be able to fire this thing up tonight. I think all I need to do is hook a gas line up. Pretty sure I drained the carbs last time I used them. I can't do an exhaust video without trying to get the bike to run. I think that's in the YouTube terms of service. Anyway, last time I got this thing fired up was probably the first video that I put on the channel about this bike, which was like 2 years ago, Jesus. So we'll see if I manage to keep the carbs clean that whole time. I don't have any throttle cables. Wow, fired right up. There's a pretty nasty exhaust leak. Damn, okay. That actually sounded pretty decent. Obviously I didn't want to like run it too much since I haven't replaced the exhaust gaskets yet. I haven't tried to like seal the collector. There's no gasket for the muffler itself. I haven't made an exhaust hanger bracket yet. But cool. Wow, yeah, it fired right the fuck up. Damn. You guys want to hear this thing without the exhaust leak? I'll close the video out with that. Off screen, I replaced the exhaust gaskets. I sealed up the collector and the muffler, and I made a hanger bracket. Really, the only last thing to do before I ride this is build a seat pan. I'm going to do, of course, a cafe-style seat, but as a challenge to myself, I'm going to make it hinge up like factory. I think that'll be that'll be cool on this bike. So next time you see it, that's probably what I'll be doing. If that interests you, you know, I do a lot of work on Hondas. I do a lot of work on old BMW. My old Harley chopper over there is getting a video pretty soon. Like I said, if that interests you, you know what to do. I appreciate you guys sticking around. Let me know what you think. I know this style isn't going to be for everybody, but I don't know, I think it's cool. It reminds me of like the early 2000s when I was a kid. So I guess that's it. Without further ado. Sounds pretty gnarly.